Purg stood at the entrance to the ship's common area, his mandibles clicking in nervous agitation. The crew had been on edge for the past few hours ever since Rusty, no, Oxidize, as they insisted on calling him, had smuggled something aboard. Rumors had spread like wildfire, each more terrifying than the last. Some claimed he had brought in a venomous predator. Others whispered about an unhatched egg from a dangerous Terran beast. Purg took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and stepped inside. The scene before him was not what he expected. Rusty sat cross-legged on the floor, a small fur-covered creature curled up in his lap, purring softly. The humans referred to it as a kitten. There, little guy. You're safe now, Rusty murmured, scratching behind the creature's ears. Purg hesitated. Rusty, what is that? Rusty grinned. This is Mittens. Don't worry, he's harmless. Just a baby, really. Harmless. The word did little to soothe Purg's rising panic. He had seen the footage. He had read the reports. Even the smallest of Terran creatures possessed instincts honed for predation. You brought a Terran predator onto a starship. Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? Rusty chuckled. Dangerous? Purg, he's a kitten. The worst he can do is scratch you. A loud yelp echoed from the other side of the room. One of the engineers had backed himself into a corner, staring at Mittens with wide, terrified eyes. It made a noise, he shrieked. That's called purring, Tello, Rusty said with an amused shake of his head. It means he's happy. Or it means he's preparing to attack, another crew member argued. We don't know what it's thinking. We don't know what it wants. Rusty sighed, scooping the kitten up into his arms. Look, Mittens isn't going to eat you. He's barely the size of my hand. Purg pointed a trembling claw at the small creature. It has retractable claws, perfect for ambushing prey. And those teeth, they are designed for tearing flesh. Mittens yawned widely, exposing tiny, sharp teeth. The entire room tensed. One crew member fainted. Rusty groaned. All right, let's calm down. Purg, you're acting like I smuggled a tiger on board. Purg's mandibles twitched. That would be worse, but not by much. Rusty sighed. Look, Mittens is domesticated. He's been living with humans for thousands of years. If anything, he needs us to survive. He wouldn't last a day in the wild. Purg narrowed his eyes. Then why does it look at me like that? Like it is assessing me? Measuring me? Rusty looked down at Mittens, who was staring at Purg with unblinking eyes. Hey, that's just how cats are. They like to observe. Purg didn't look convinced. If it tries anything, I will not hesitate to defend myself. You won't have to, Rusty promised. Just then, Mittens jumped from Rusty's arms and landed gracefully on the floor. He stretched, then trotted over to Purg. The alien stiffened but didn't move. Mittens sniffed at his clawed foot, then, without warning, rubbed his tiny head against it. The room fell into stunned silence. Purg's mandibles parted in shock. It is marking me? Rusty grinned. Yep. Congratulations, Purg. Mittens likes you. Purg blinked, looking down at the small ball of fur now curling around his leg. He carefully extended a single claw and gave the kitten the lightest of pokes. Mittens let out a small murp and flopped over onto his side, exposing his belly. He has surrendered? Purg asked, tilting his head. Rusty chuckled. Something like that. He trusts you. Purg hesitated before cautiously reaching down and stroking the kitten's soft fur. Mittens purred loudly, his tiny body vibrating. I do not understand, Purg admitted. But it is not unpleasant. Rusty grinned. See? You'll get used to him. The rest of the crew remained huddled in the corner, still wary, but as Purg continued to pet Mittens, the tension in the room began to ease. Maybe, just maybe, they could survive this terrifying ordeal after all. I'd come home from the hardware shop, my hands still smelling of sawdust, and see the little messes stacking up, dishes in the sink, trash overflowing, a light flickering in the hall. The girls noticed first. Sophie missed her college prep. Lesson one Saturday, since Kayla forgot to drive her. Ordinarily, I'd have been the one checking the schedule, making sure she got there. She came home late, her face tight, and waited in the garage doorway while I worked on the motorcycle. I was tightening a chain, the clank of metal filling the space, and I spotted her out of the corner of my eye, adjusting her weight like she wanted to say something but didn't. She just stood there, then left. Mila was quieter about it. Her soccer outfit shrank in the washer. Kayla tossed it in without checking, and Mila ended up with a shirt that barely fit. She wore it anyhow, straining at the hem, and didn't ask me to adjust it as I would have before. I watched her leave. Her report card on the table one night, a B highlighted in red like she was giving a clue. I didn't pick it up, didn't inquire how school was going. I sipped my beer and left it sitting there, the paper curling at the edges. They were starting to sense it. Me not being there. Not just the rides or the fixes, but the way I used to hover, checking in, keeping things steady. Now, I was a shadow moving across the house without a sound. Kayla didn't notice at first, too busy with her late nights and her phone. She'd breeze in, her heels clicking, and pour her drink like nothing had changed. But the girls did. Sophie lingered more. Her footsteps slow past the garage, her eyes shifting to me when she thought I wasn't watching. Mila left little signs. The report card, a half-finished painting of a horse on the counter. Stuff she used to show me with a grin. I didn't bite. I'd spent years jumping at every chance to be their dad, every late-night discussion, every patched-up error, and they'd flung it back at me with, "You're not our real dad." So I remained out of it, let Grant stand up or not. I wasn't holding my breath. One night I heard them bickering in the kitchen. Sophie's voice was piercing, cutting through the buzz of the TV. "Why didn't you inform me about the class? I needed to go." Kayla snapped back. "You're 16, figure it out." Mila chimed in, softer. "The clothes were ruined, Mom. I looked dumb at practice." Kayla laughed. That short, harsh sound I'd come to loathe. "Then wash it right next time." I was upstairs, lying on the bed, the door cracked, and I didn't move. They were upset, flailing, and I let them. It wasn't my mess to clean up, anymore. At work, Ricky spotted me working with a busted drill, my hand steady, and sneered. "You're letting them sink, huh?" he said. I nodded, wiping grease on my shorts. "They wanted it this way." He clapped me on the back. "Tough love, man. They'll get it eventually." Maybe he was right. Claire thought so too. She called. While I was eating cold leftovers in the garage, the phone pinched against my shoulder. "They're spoiled," she said, her voice breaking through the line. "You did too much, and now they're lost without you. Good. Let 'em work it out." I didn't argue. She'd raised her boys with a firm hand. No coddling. And they turned out fine. Me, I'd been softer. Always there, always repairing. Now, I wasn't. And the girls were tripping. Sophie kept hovering, her shadow stretching over the garage floor. Some nights,